Hey guys, we are quickly approaching the quarter century mark on the Inner Wealth podcast. And we're closing in on 250 episodes. Now, if I were to go back to the first 10 episodes, so what I did at the beginning of the Inner Wealth podcast is I recorded the first 10 episodes, and it was some great advice I got from before I started my podcast, before I started this podcast. And then at that point, it was called Lead, Love, Profit, Play. I like these really wacky names, but the beginning of the podcast, I recorded the first 10 episodes before I even launched one and I just kept queuing them up and teeing them up. And they started launching because I'm not sure if everyone's completely aware of this, but there are millions and millions of podcasts in existence. And there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts that are launched every year. And most podcasts do not make it past episode 5. And the most podcasts, even those 5 or even other ones that go longer, most podcasts, the first few, maybe even the first, 50, 100, you don't get more than 10 downloads. Now, luckily I got more than 10, but it wasn't this extraordinary breakthrough that everybody wants when they launch a podcast. But those first 10, gave me enough patience and enough momentum to be able to keep going. And I didn't quit during the 10 because sometimes the reason that some podcasts end within the first 5 episodes is people become demotivated. And those 10 gave me some staying power. And then I started to see towards the end, somewhere between episode 5 and 10, I started seeing some progress and started upticking in downloads. It was really cool. So, but we've come a long way on this podcast. And if you go back to those early episodes, the message is radically different. And what I was teaching is radically different. And what I was sharing with the world, what I was focused on in the world for both myself and for other people was radically different. And it just shows where I was then and where I am now. Back then, it was really geared towards business owners and creating more wealth and success in their lives, because that's where I was in that time. I was focused on the wealth and success aspect of creating a business. And although I still do grow my business and I still do focus on the growth, I understand, I see it differently, and I connect with it and I resonate with it differently. And I share the kind of the things that have lurked in the shadows, that were lurking in the shadows back then when I was building my business. And a lot of that is, the pressure and the stress and the tension that comes with building a business. And what I recognize now is there's, just like me back then, there are a lot of entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs, that wake up every day under intense pressure, stress, tension, and they live in it and they carry it around in their bodies, and they don't, it becomes so normal in their lives that they just live in it. And almost when it's gone, they feel like something's wrong, like they're doing something wrong, and they push themselves so that they feel more pressure, stress, and tension in their lives. And they do this at the expense of their nervous system and at the expense of their long-term health. And what I share now and what I'm sharing now and what's really connecting and landing like nothing else has before with the audience that I've built, that we've built, and the community that we have, is moving from pressure-filled hustle and stress and grind to pressureless productivity, continuing to grow our business, continuing to build our business, but to do it from a place of pressurelessness. And there's still pressure in life. We're still always going to experience some level of pressure because we do have this animalistic nervous system that is fighting for survival at any given time. And it still holds true that your nervous system has one job and one job only, and that is to keep us alive. Your nervous system is there to keep you alive, and it keeps you alive by trying to keep you in familiar circumstances. And it tries to keep you in familiar circumstances because it knows how to live there. It knows how to keep you alive there. And anything unfamiliar feels unsafe, feels like there's danger there, and there's there's hidden danger and there's a hidden trap, and it tries to keep you out of those unfamiliar circumstances because it's trying to do you a service to keep you alive. And it only knows how to operate in the light of what it knows instead of the darkness and the shadows of what it doesn't. And when we begin to step into the unknown, when we begin to step into the unfamiliar, when we begin to step into unfamiliar circumstances, it naturally creates a pressure, a stress, and a tension in our bodies because it's our nervous system signaling danger and a warning sign. And if we live in that, like that's just normal, and we don't learn how to manage it, it will manage us. And one pressure will turn into another. It seems like one pressure will turn into another, but in reality, one pressure will compound and onto another, and it'll just keep building, and it'll just keep burying, any joy that's inside, and your life will become heavier and heavier and heavier all the time. And what I'm doing now, and what my team at Inner Wealth Global is doing right now, is really focusing on helping entrepreneurs. We have a business call in our mastermind, and I love the business call, but that's not the purpose of the Inner Wealth Mastermind. Building our business is fun, and it's an adventure, and it's something it's the most spiritual journey you'll ever go on, because there's entrepreneurism is a spiritual path where there's no place to hide, and you'll be exposed to every single feeling that you don't want to feel, and you'll have to say things you don't want to say, and you'll have to do things that you don't want to do, and you'll have to make decisions that you don't want to have to make. But the reality is the entrepreneur journey will expose every single shadow that's inside of you. And if you don't know what to do with these shadows, you don't know what to do with the pressure, tension, and stress inside of you, it'll just keep building, and eventually it'll bury you. The focus and the mission of the Inner Wealth Mastermind, and of the Inner Wealth community, and of my private coaching right now, and everything that I do, this podcast, is all about helping people let go of the pressure that they feel, that they've almost become normalized in, and just associate it with being a human being. And it's just not true. That's not it's not a required part of being a human being. And although it will continue to show up, when you have the tools to be able to do something with it, you won't have to carry it around forever. You'll know how to manage it and deal with it in the present moment. And then you can return back to a place of pressurelessness. And from there, we can continue to build and grow and create. And when the pressure shows back up, we'll know what to do with it. We'll have a mechanism to be able to release it, and instead of carry it around. So that's kind of this difference, the shape shift that we did during the Inner Wealth podcast, formerly known as Lead, Love, Profit, Play. And vastly different message, but it also reflects my state of consciousness over time. And as we grow, as I have grown, the message has grown. As I have evolved, the message has evolved. It's just a natural part of life. So the branding may seem to change, but the teacher is just evolving, and the branding and the message evolves with the teacher. That's kind of like how this whole thing works with this life that we're here to live. So in last week, episode 243, we talked about moving from pressure-filled life and a pressure-filled journey to pressureless productivity. And today, and I shared that you need to understand and see things at a different level in order to really transform and move from pressure to pressurelessness. You really need to understand options and opportunities at a deeper level, expanded level. And I said that's what the 4 existential drives is meant to do. And if you've watched maybe my Facebook, and if you haven't connected with me on Facebook, please do. Also TikTok, I share some things on TikTok and a lot of time on Facebook. But if you haven't connected with those, connect to them. I'm recording this podcast episode right now, and it's going to go on YouTube. You can also check out my YouTube channel. With subscribe, like, share across all the platforms, because they really help me. But the point being is I share about the 4 existential drives, where the drive for survival, the drive for self-indulgence, the drive for freedom, and the drive for meaning. And these are 4 inherent drives that I've recognized in myself and I've recognized in other people. And that is the new awareness that you need to have in order to really get out of the rat race. And when I say rat race, it's bouncing from the 2 drives that people often get stuck in: drive for survival and the drive for self-indulgence, and back and forth. Survival, self-indulgence. You work in your business and you grind and your hustle. Then you go on vacation and you take a pause for a week, and then you go back into the survival mode and you go back into grind and hustle, and you bounce back and forth between these 2, never entering the third drive, and that's the drive for freedom. And that's where the pressurelessness lives. So that's the new awareness. The second is a new approach. You need a new approach. And this is what we're going to talk about today, is this new approach. I'm going to slow this way down, and I'm going to teach some basic things. Number 1 is the difference between responding and reacting. It's really, really critical, because if we don't know how to respond instead of react, then your nervous system will hijack you, and it'll take you places that you trust me, that they're not aligned for you, and they're just because of a survival response. So we're going to talk about learning the difference between responding and reacting, which is critical to everything in transforming your life. And then next, we're going to revisit the drill method. And the drill method is it's a framework and terminology that I kind of developed to be able to teach how to let go of the pressure that's inside. All right. And so this is really just a new approach, respond versus react, and a new tool, the drill method. And these are a few of the things that I shared last week in terms of the 5 things that you needed to do differently in order to transform your life. So first, we're going to talk about respond versus react. I ask this question a lot of my students, and it's a very, very basic question. And when I ask it to them for the first time, they don't know. And it's one of those questions. I know the questions that when I ask, people are going to flounder, and they're not going to know because they've never really thought about it deeply. And I think about a lot of these things, deeply. And I'm the existential philosopher, I guess you could say. I love that terminology for kind of the work that I do by myself and with other people. But a lot of people don't contemplate the difference between respond and reacting. It's very, very critical. And I'll ask them, what's the difference between responding and reacting? And they'll give me these really vague answers that are all over the board. It's like shooting a machine gun at a barn, and they hit all over the place. And there's always some truth to every answer they give, and it's okay. But I say, listen, I just want to simplify the difference between responding and reacting. And I say, responding is a pause with a breath. That's responding. Pausing, taking a breath, setting an intention, and moving forward without reacting. And reacting is you're triggered, your nervous system goes into fight or flight, you get this stress signal, and immediately you just react. You just go to work, you just pop off, whatever. All you're trying to do, all you do is almost like unconsciously act because of the pressure, stress, and tension that's inside. It's kind of like when somebody insults you. Have you ever noticed sometimes somebody gets insulted and they go from 0 to 100 in a split second, where you're an asshole. No, you're an asshole. And suddenly they're screaming and yelling at the other person. Complete reaction. There's no intentionality to it. There's no response whatsoever. Their nervous system was triggered, and they literally went into action. And it's almost like it's unconscious, and they don't even know how to pause and take a breath. Okay? Because responding is trained, where reacting is strictly a primitive response. It's a survival response, and it'll keep you in survival mode. And the only way to move into the freedom, the natural pressurelessness drive for freedom, is to learn how to respond instead of react. And these two are opposites. However, because survival and freedom are opposites, moving from pressure to pressurelessness, but the only thing they really take immediately is to learn how to respond instead of react. Now, when you're going to go through life, if you are anything like the other 8.22 billion people that are on this planet, you are going to be triggered by life. Life will cut you. Your relationships will cut you, your business will cut you, your job will cut you. And what I mean by cut, it will trigger your nervous system. Something will set your nervous system alarms off. And that'll trigger the pressure, stress, tension, anxiety, all this stuff inside of you that most people are trying to avoid. And this is when we have the opportunity to train ourselves to respond instead of react. But when that nervous system is triggered, with enough training and with enough practice, not perfect, with enough practice, when your nervous system is triggered, instead of just immediately reacting, you will pause, you will take a breath, and you will intentionally choose the next action instead of just react, which is just actually taking an unconscious leap forward or an unconscious leap backwards to solve or sort out or to deal with the pressure, stress, tension, anxiety, whatever, fear that's inside. And it starts with a pause, a breath, and an intentional move. It's almost like playing chess instead of, a beginner chess player is looking to move their piece as fast as possible, where a master chess player in between moves, I don't know exactly, I think it's 10 minutes. They have 10 minutes between moves. And when the timers hit, they'll sit there for 9 minutes and 90 or 9 minutes and 55 seconds and play through every single scenario and look for the greatest move that they can make, not just a move that is going to get the other person to play their move. So this is a matter of pausing, breathing, and then pausing long enough so that you can deal with the pressure that's happening inside of you, not allowing it to control you. But then when you do move forward, when we're responding correctly, you don't move forward with the pressure. You move forward from a place of pressurelessness to take the best action or the best amount of inaction in order to resolve this thing if it needs to be resolved. It could be a false flag. It could be your body signaling a false danger, and it never really needed an action. But your body was trying to get you into action because if it sensed danger, your nervous system sensed danger, but there was none. And really inaction was required, where when you're living in a place of reaction, you just immediately hop into action in some way. And it's to solve that pressure, stress, tension inside. I hope that makes sense. That is critical. And that's key to opening up a new approach to life. It's first, in any situation where you're triggered and there's pressure, stress, and tension, the very first thing to do is to pause and address the pressure first, not take action first. Okay? So I want to clear that up. That really is important to get out in the open. That is how we take a new approach to life. Now, next, so we're going to talk about the drill method. This is a tool for taking that new approach, for shifting to response instead of reaction. And the drill method, I'm going to go over, it's an acronym, and I'm going to go over the acronym first. And then I'm going to go through each layer and each component of the drill method, because it stands for drop into the body, recognize what's inside, what's happening inside, inquire and investigate why you're feeling this way or why this condition exists. Listen to it, and that inquire, you ask it some questions. I know it sounds weird, but you ask it some questions. You listen to what it's saying to you, Listen to what it's telling you. Your body will start to speak to you. It will give you the awareness of where some of this stuff came from and why you're being triggered. And then the last and the most important and the only one that is required is to let it go. Now, I remember the first time, when I was making my spiritual journey or my shift, my embarking on a spiritual journey back in 2016, when my coach, and he didn't exactly express it, as respond and react and the drill method. He didn't have these terminologies to give me, but when he shared this with me, it almost felt impossible. What do you mean when my wife says something disrespectful? What do you mean when my kids say something disrespectful? I'm not supposed to just pop off at them. How can I possibly do that? It's just natural. It's just my natural instinct. And back then that was true. It was almost like I had zero self-control. I had zero self-awareness. It was like that was instinctual because I only knew how to live in survival mode and I couldn't see anything beyond it. And since then, not only have I developed a healthier relationship with my wife and my kids, and I've learned not to react from pressure and stress of just people like throwing insults and social media disagreements and all these things, just not reacting to them and just kind of like dealing with the pressure and laughing them off and let them go. Not has it only like improved my social interactions, but it's also improved the way I handle and resolve problems in my own business. That, when you see that dip in revenue, that dip in sales, it might send shockwaves up your nervous system. And then the tendency is just to go right back into reaction mode to make some more money, where there might be just a natural cycle and a natural flow to business where you're in a cycle where there's no amount of action, there's no amount of whatever work that's going to solve it, because it's just a natural flow of life and business. And a reaction it'll cause you to do work that's unproductive and unnecessary. And a response will understand, pause, breathe. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? Drop into the body, recognize what's in there, inquire into the feeling, into the condition, listen to what it's telling you, and then let it go. And that let it go might say, wow, I really don't need to do anything because there's nothing wrong. It was just my body signaled danger because your body is riddled. Our bodies, nervous system sometimes are riddled with insecurity, inadequacy, and insignificance. The three voices of survival mode. And I've done plenty of episodes about the three voices, the four voices, actually. The fourth voice is the voice of creation mode, the voice of freedom. And that's inspiration. Now, when I learned and I trained myself and I practiced over and over for, it's been a decade now, I still get triggered. Somebody says something and I feel it. Something happens in revenue and sales. Something happens in the business. I have an awesome client that decides not to continue on, not to renew our work together. It might trigger something inside, but instead of reacting, I know how to respond. And I get triggered and I immediately pause, take a breath, drop into the body, recognize what's in there and what I'm feeling, inquire and investigate into why is this here? How did this get here? What is it trying to tell me? What am I scared of? What am I afraid of losing? Listen to my body, listen to what my nervous system's trying to tell me, because it will tell you where all this stuff's coming from. And the only one, the one that's most important and the only one that's required is to let it go. And what I mean by the only one that's required is after an amount of practice, it's almost like the first four you can bypass and just get right to the let it go, where you pause, you take a breath, and within that breath, you feel the pressure that's inside of you, and you just release it, and your body returns back to pressurelessness. And you don't have to sit in that pressure-filled state for very long. And that is how we move from hustle-filled pressure to pressureless productivity, by learning how to respond, the difference between responding and reacting, and learning how to respond more to life instead of constantly reacting from survival instincts. And then, second of all, is to let it go, and doing whatever you need to within the drill method. Drop into your body, recognize what's in there, inquire into it, listen to it, and let it go. And there are other methods. There's the Sedona method, there's tapping, there's EFT, there's cranial sacral therapy, there's Reiki, there's all these energy modalities that help you get the energy, the stale, trapped energy that's inside your body, to get it to let go and release. And they're all meant to do the same thing, create internal freedom. And internal freedom is basically just pressurelessness. That's what we're all after. But most people only bounce from survival to self-indulgence. And the self-indulgence is the only thing they have, the only mechanism that they have to really escape or pause the survival pressure, stress, and tension that they feel. But as soon as the self-indulgence is done, they go right back into survival mode. And this is why me and my wife and my kids used to take 10-day vacations when I was working in corporate, 10-day vacations, go down to Mexico, overeat, overdrink, oversaturate ourselves with pure pleasure. And then we get on a plane, come back home, and I go right back into survival mode, where all the pressure, stress, and tension lived, with no way to deal with it and no way to let it go. No tool, no new approach, and no new tool. And that's why all of my life imploded back then. And now this is why I get to share this with the world. And I want for you, if you want to live into pressure, and a lot of people say pressure is a privilege, and that's fine. If that's you and you want the privilege of pressure, and you are in love with your pressure, and you glorify pressure in life, please keep it. I'm not trying to take it away from you. But if you are ready to move beyond what we've deemed as the normal pressures of entrepreneurism and building a business and relating with our family, if you want to move beyond that, then I want to help you with that. And that's going to take understanding that there's more available, a new approach and new tools, and understanding that, we need to be different and do different to have different outcomes and to have a different experience in life. If this is you, I want to connect with you. Give me on every podcast episode in the show notes is my email address. It goes directly to me, not to an assistant, not to anybody else. That email goes directly to me. Email me, get in touch with me. We'll get some time on my calendar so that we can jam, and we'll see how we can work together in order to move from a pressure-filled life to a pressureless life. If that sounds good to you and that's what you want, I'm here for it. All right. Podcast has evolved tremendously, but right now, as I send out these messages about moving from pressure to pressureless productivity, it's really getting a lot of attention, and the antenna's going up. I had more discovery calls over the last couple of weeks because of that little simple concept. And responses from emails. If you're not on my email list, drop me an email, and so I can and tell me you want to be on the email list, and I'll get you on there. But if all of this or any of this sounds good to you, reach out. I want to jam with you. All right. Listen, thanks for listening to this. We're approaching 250 episodes. That's a milestone and a marker that I couldn't have perceived back then. And I'm honored to get there with you. Thanks for sticking with me. I'll stick with you. Let's keep jamming together. Until next week, create an exceptional, internally pressureless life.